Neil Armfield's 2015 film Holding the Man, based on the Australian memoir of the same title by Timothy Conigrave, tells the true story of Conigrave's 15-year relationship with John Caleo during the 1970s and 80s and AIDS epidemic. The film both challenges and reflects Australian archetypes, offering a refreshing view of Australian masculinity and a depiction of suburban lifestyle. Australian archetypes such as the larrikin, the bushman, the hawker, the mate, the battler are all male-coded and reflect a very traditional portrayal of masculinity. Outdoorsy, self-reliant, emotionally contained, loyal, and heterosexual. The film challenges these archetypes through the characterization of John and Tim, and through the representation of an upper-class suburban Australia. The archetype of the larrikin, a loud, tough, and rebellious character who is associated with a lack of emotional expressiveness and a tendency towards aggression, is often how young men are represented in Australian media. Physical toughness, mateship, and the ability to withstand hardships were foundational in the development of an Australian identity. Through this characterization, Timothy Conigrave challenges this Australian archetype and the idea of Australian masculinity. Tim is a sensitive and emotional man. He is loud and flamboyant, caring and passionate, rather than aggressive and stoic.
Say I'm too gay, too loud, too self-centered.
He is proud of his passion for the arts and his love for John. He is outspoken in his beliefs but never fights with violence. Tim's identity as a gay man and his relationship with John also goes against the heterosexual nature of these archetypes, as an Australian male or a true Aussie bloke is a heterosexual one. Tim's character goes against everything an Aussie bloke is supposed to be and challenges and broadens what an Australian man can look like. In contrast to Tim, John portrays many aspects of Australian archetypes. However, through his character development, these tropes are dismantled. Towards the beginning of the film, John is a typical Aussie bloke. The iconic Australian man is laconic, rough, sporting, white, heterosexual, and down to earth. For the most part, John fits this mold. He's the captain of the AFL team, has plenty of mates, is tough, unemotional, and white. John can be compared to a larrikin. He is quick to violence and lacks emotional expressiveness. As the film goes on, however, and John contracts AIDS, that toughness and stoicism dissipates. John's masculine front withers as he loses massive amounts of weight and becomes weak. This is a deconstruction of the traditional Australian masculinity. As John grows weaker, his true nature is revealed as a sensitive, emotional, and loving person. His passion and love for Tim becomes more and more outspoken, as does his identity as a gay man.
You're telling people I have cancer. It's AIDS, Dad. The cancer is from AIDS. I'm not ashamed of what I have.
John's more traditional expression of masculinity provides an interesting contrast to his queer identity, as it challenges the idea that a true Aussie bloke is a heterosexual one. The archetypes of the larrikin, the mate, and the battler suggest that Australia is a country that accepts rebellion and dismisses authority. Colonial Australian culture has been developed on the rejection of the British influence. Archetypes such as the bushman and the battler reflect our individualistic and working class national identity. However, through Tim and John's family and friends' negative reaction to their relationship, it is demonstrated that there are limitations to the amount of rebellion and individualism Australians will accept, demonstrating that our culture is still deeply rooted in conservative British ideals, challenging the idea of mateship and Australia's laid-back nature.
I talked to the parish priest. He recommended a psychologist. Your mother will make an appointment and you will see this man.
The film also challenges the outdoorsy, rough, and working-class aspects of these archetypes through the portrayal of two suburban, upper-middle-class Catholic families. Tim and John both attend Xavier College, a wealthy private school, and grew up in upper-class, inner-city suburban homes. The film is primarily set in the city, in Melbourne and Sydney, and portrays a very different Australia from popular Australian films such as Crocodile Dundee or Australia. In the majority of Australian cinema, the Australian landscape is a ubiquitous central character. However, in Holding the Man, there is no focus on wildlife, nature, the bush, or outback, and instead on family relationships and domestic life. This depiction of the Australian lifestyle feels very British and higher class, which challenges our national identity of being tough and working class, and our desire to be distinguished from Britain. Holding the Man is a film that both reflects and challenges traditional Australian archetypes. Through its depiction of an upper-class, suburban Catholic story, it challenges Australian archetypes of working-class, tough and outdoorsy characters. The characterisation of Tim and John both reflect and challenge the traditional masculinity that these archetypes depict, and reveal a broader idea of what an Australian man can be.